Hello, welcome to Ambition Theory, Women in Construction, Laura and Lisa. I am so honored that you are here today to share your leadership story. Laura Hynes, welcome. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
So I'm Laura Hynes with Lindsay Construction, marketing and communications specialist with the company. I've been here 18 years, long time. We're general contractor in Atlantic Canada through all the provinces. We were established 1959, so we've been around a few years. And yeah, we've got a really great group.
And can you tell me what you love about the construction industry?
The construction industry is always changing and no 2 days are ever the same. And I love seeing nothing pleases me more than a design build project that looks exactly like the rendering and something we can showcase and be proud of and a happy client and just really seeing new staff come through and just kind of make their way in the industry. And yeah, it's a process.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us, Laura. Lisa Fougere, welcome to the podcast. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do at Lindsay Construction?
Absolutely. So I'm Lisa Fougere. I'm here with you today, and thank you for having me. With Lindsay Construction for 10 years as the controller. Yeah, it's been a fabulous 10 years. I started in a very junior role and I've worked my way all the way up to controller.
And what do you love about the construction industry?
Hands down, it's the people, the connections that you make along the way. Everybody from the field, the roofers, the cladders to, the trades and then, our project management team. And it's just the people and connections you make along the way. And being part of something that's the building, I guess, like that tangible build, right? In the community, like to look around and see the buildings in the community that your company's been part of.
That's cool. Thank you. And I'm so honored that you are both here today. So you both took part in our leadership accelerator. And I want to ask you some questions about what it was like. So first, Laura, I wonder if you could take me back to before you signed up for the course and tell me what was going on for you.
I wrote proposals here for 17 years and then went on maternity leave in 2020. So while I was off on maternity leave, pandemic kind of started right away. And so just kind of looking at my work identity and what I was coming back to, and we had hired a really fantastic proposal writer to replace me. And I just kind of saw this opportunity where we could do better. So we could do better with marketing and communications and just kind of up our game significantly. So I made a pitch to come back to a different role and keep her, and it all kind of worked out. With respect to the course, I seen a male colleague participated in that podcast that you had done and was
So
with.
that's the episode. We'll put the episode to this link. This was with Jeremy Tucker, who is he's a project superintendent, right, Laura?
Chief Operations Superintendent.
Operations superintendent. So we'll put a link to that podcast in the show notes.
Yeah. So basically it was scary and it seemed like a good fit for the new role that I was about to take on. And I don't usually do courses because my days are full and I had my baby at home, but I thought I was restarting my education with McMaster at the time. And it just seemed like a really good opportunity. So I subsequently figured out that there were two other colleagues in the course, which we kind of banded together during the process and met some wonderful ladies along the way and came out the other side.
Okay, awesome. That's really awesome that you kind of use that opportunity to write your own job description. And I'm curious how that was received because it's really interesting because like somebody replaced you, right? And you said they were fantastic. And often unconsciously, like women can kind of get into this like competitive situation, right? Like it could be threatening, especially COVID, uncertainty. And you really approach the situation with abundance, opportunity. How can we like level up the company? How can we deliver more value? I'm just really curious as to like during those COVID times, like it was not very uncertain. How are you able to keep yourself so positive, so opportunity minded, like really showing up with abundance in that navigation?
I was very bad at being on maternity leave. I wasn't very good at staying away. I kind of had 17 years here where I had a second family here. So just kind of keeping those relationships and conversations going while I was off and just really talking it out. And I took the idea to my CEO, president, and said, I kind of made the low level pitch. And I clearly remember the moment he said, I need to hear you say it. And he maybe not doesn't remember this, but I said, say what? And he said, you need a change. And I said, oh my gosh, I need a change. And he said, okay, let's go. And we refined the job description that I put in front of him and kind of saw an opportunity to make some gains just in the area of communications all around and kind of become just a support network for some new people, the proposal writer in particular. And yeah, I never, I guess I was never scared or threatened by her position because I was so excited about this new journey. So it all happened pretty quickly. And then from there, I just kind of was off to the races. So
Amazing. So when you
it
sent
was
it
good.
it sounded it sounded like, okay, I'm here. I kind of like got myself this far, and now it's like time to get to the like go even like supercharge it. Was that kind of your motivation?
Yeah, 17 years was a really long time to do the same thing every day. And I was also, I started as a temp here for 2 weeks. So it really wasn't something I never thought I'd be in construction. I worked for a law firm for a long time and kind of floated around after that for a little while. And it just really presented itself where I got excited by marketing and just the brand and owning an area of the company that could help every area. So safety, operations, the regional offices, estimating, pre-con, it just kind of came together. And I just consider myself really, really lucky
That's awesome. Well, lucky, I would say like lucky, hardworking, take advantage of opportunities, put yourself out there.
too. Yeah.
All of those things. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. Lisa, can you talk about kind of what was going on for you before you signed up for
So for me, I guess I was at a very pivotal point in my life, not just in my career, but just in general as a person. Come through a period of tremendous personal loss and change, and like everyone dealing with the challenges of a global pandemic. All around, I think I was just in a bit of a transformational rut. One of my colleagues reached out asking if I'd be interested in the leadership course for women in construction and thought it might be a great fit for me. And I jumped in and I said yes. And I guess it's been a wonderful experience.
I'm really curious because you joined, I think, last minute, and I think you were even like a day or two late coming in, Lisa. What
Right.
made you say yes instead of saying, no, 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 I'll wait till the next round? Or because there's always reasons to say no, right? Like busy, late, you're behind, you're starting. There's so many reasons why you could have said no. What made you say yes?
I think just inherently knowing it's time, like you can't stay in this state, right? Like now or never kind of position almost it like mentally for myself. Right. I just knew after some of the challenges that I'd been faced with and in the year leading up to that point in time that time was of the essence and I needed to do it for my own mental health.
Okay. And so can you describe a little bit more? Like, let's focus on the professional side of things.
Yeah.
Was there something like holding you back or blocking you from kind of like leveling up your leadership?
I would say my career path was very organic, the way it came about, and my own self-confidence was just holding me back. I didn't understand or recognize the work that I had put in to land in the position that I'm in and really own that and not be shy to say that, I think.
Okay. So it's really about like that self confidence and recognizing everything that you bring, all the things that you've brought to the table. Cause like the list is long. I never heard you list your accomplishments. And it's a very long list. Like then you've like delivered tremendous value to the company. So it was about like, was that the thing? Was like, it was like the missing piece was like taking ownership of that?
I think so, just allowing myself to be present in that moment with myself, who I am or who I've developed into as, you know, as controller, right? Like I mentioned, it was organic. I started in a very junior role and I cross-trained myself into, eventually an acting controller position and eventually that became a full-time thing for me. And I guess maybe at one point, I don't know, I thought maybe I was the default answer to that role. It's just because I had been there and for a while and understood the functions of the department. But of course, that's not the case. There's always a choice. They could have went outside and hired for the role. And somewhere I just got stuck that I was a default and not, I hadn't actually earned that. But, that's not through some of the exercises we did in your course. I recognize that, I put the time in and I have value and I deserve to be where I am.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Laura, how about you? Was there something kind of blocking you from kind of leveling up from a leadership perspective, kind of going all in with your new role?
I always say I didn't really choose construction. It chose me. Not really in a negative way in any way, shape, or form, but it definitely wasn't. I never thought I'd fill my days talking about design, build, general contracting, construction management, and all the things that come with that. Um, but then I would see all these women coming through, these project coordinators always were on a mission. They wanted to be a project manager or a senior project manager or project director. And they were on such a direct path. And so I think I just got inside my head too much and you just overthink things and talk yourself out of them and kind of I was kind of at a turning point where I've never had I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I've never had a boss whose job I wanted. I never wanted to be vice president of business development or the director of pre-construction or vice president of operations. And I've gone through all these managers and not once was I like, oh my gosh, I'm on that path just because it didn't feel right. So I kind of had to just make my own job, make my own way and just kind of figure it out as I go. So we're getting there.
Okay, so it's really about realizing that, you know what, like this, because construction is evolving, right? Like there's lots of innovation. The way projects are done is changing. So it sounds like that you kind of like saw this situation where like the current structure, maybe like I don't fit, right? Like I don't see that ladder, which is really common for women. Like most women, when you talk to them, they don't have that straight path up to the top. It's usually like a diagonal path. And it sounds like for you, there was like, you know what, that thing is not existing right now. Like, how do I create it? Was that
Mhm.
kind of what was
Yeah, but just
happening?
seeing like 18 years ago, the women in the company were in accounting and at the front desk. And it was just the nature of the business at the time. And since then, it's like you see all these great women performing these really important functions and just in director positions and running teams. And it kind of was very eye-opening that, okay, we've come a long way. And I kind of blinked and 18 years went by. It wasn't something I really sat down and thought about, but oh my gosh, like what am I capable of? And this course really opened up your eyes to thinking like, okay, I deserve this role. And like Lisa said, I'm here for a reason and somebody believed in me enough to put me here. So it feels good.
So I want to talk about the coaching because the main thing that we do in our course is like there's curriculum, but there's also the coaching, which is really focused on like your mindset and just shifting that perspective. Like Lisa talked about, like that shift in perspective, like from, okay, the only reason they picked me because I was here for 10 years and there was no other option to actually they picked me because 10 years of delivering value, like building relationships, bringing all this expertise to the table. That is actually the reason why they picked me. So, like, Lisa, you talked about that mindset shift that you had during the course. Laura, I'm wondering if there was a shift that happened for you that you could share.
Week one of coaching, I was just nauseous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to these women. I don't know these women. Is it really a safe place? Like Andrew keeps saying, like, okay, outside your box is where the magic happens. And I don't I stay in my lane and I don't go outside the box. And I'm try to be pretty non-controversial. So to take those thoughts and kind of expel them to a group of women that you don't know and don't have history with was the first week, like just I was sweating, I was nervous. I was just like, please don't call on me. And then you get called on. And by week 2 and 3, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for like 10 o'clock. Like I'm just so excited to block out the world and see what these women are up to. And you strangely become so invested with them. And someone makes a shift or a move and you're cheering them on behind your screen. And it's just like a very powerful experience.
Okay, I love that you brought that up. So this idea of like success, like you are the average of the people you spend time with, right? So you're spending time with people who are getting out of their comfort zone, working towards their goals like every week for 8 weeks. So tell me like what happened to you? Like I love that I don't know if I could tell how nervous you are in the first week. So thank you for sharing that. Um, but tell me like what happened between week 1 and 2 where you realized like leaning into these people, getting uncomfortable, building community, that is something really magical and really really amazing that went from something like literally like you're hiding from me. like
Yeah.
you're like started out from hiding to actually like wanting to lean in, wanting to explore, wanting to get uncomfortable. Like what happened between week 1 and 2?
And just being called out in the process, but in like the very best way. So if you have like I would find myself with negative language and I would see, somebody in the screen perk up and you would say, don't do that. Don't like you gotta flip the script and think about the positive. Like you have, earned this role and you're overcoming obstacles every week and just kind of feeling that other people were invested in me too. And maybe you kind of have hidden in your office for a number of years and just kind of put your head down and hid behind the screen and all that. And just kind of gradually you just find yourself walking down the hall to have a conversation with someone instead of, hiding behind the screen or just it was a very personal experience and just very eye opening that you're not alone and meeting these women who are moms as well and multitasking and being rerouted in their lives and just being, you know, inheriting a placement that's several provinces away and just you suddenly become very lucky to have that group of women to bounce things off of and just connect with.
So I love you. So for you, Laura, I know you've kind of like taken this like connection piece and like brought it back to your career. So can you tell me what kind of that led to? The fact that you're being intentional about relationship building?
It was the delegating for me. Every week, every week I got called out on, you need to delegate. You need to, put yourself in this other category where it's okay to hand off tasks that you know how to do and you're capable of doing and just to really grow in this new role and coming from being a coordinator to a specialist role and then knowing that maybe manager is next and having a team of people and just kind of the constant improvement and just really validating why you're here and how you got here and how you're gonna keep going was something I never ever thought about because it was just I was the proposal coordinator and that was that and I was seemingly good. We won some work and and yeah, it's just a different ball game.
Okay, I want to talk about delegation because this is something, it's not just you that this was a challenge for. This is like literally documented with research that that's kind of like the hardest thing to get to like that next level of leadership is realizing that like the things that I'm really good at is actually not what I need to be doing if I want to level up to that next level. It's really more of that, like you talked about, leaning into those relationships and delegating. But can you talk about the pain of delegation because it is really painful and it's really hard and it like it sounds easy, right? Oh, just delegate it to your team. But like when it comes down to it, like what if they screw up, right? Like what if the stakes are really high and they don't deliver? Like how did you kind of get over some of those challenges?
The leadership assessment that we got where our peers evaluated us and were very honest and not seemingly anonymous among the group was definitely eye-opening and emotional for me because it kind of brought to the forefront that, I should be using team members and I just because I can do it doesn't mean I should be doing it. I have other individuals and capable individuals to lean on and somebody had written in there like the fear of letting other people fail is not a reflection on your ability or your capabilities and just you called me out on that a few times as well and just really pumped me up to make the move and not be afraid to just because it takes me the same amount of time to draft the instructions and the deadlines and all this other stuff doesn't mean that I should just take that on because my time is valuable too. So it's just kind of changing your mentality and your attitude and holding other people accountable is not a bad thing. It's going to help them grow. It's going to help the company grow and just all the things that I kind of aspire to be. So
So that is really cool that you brought that up about our assessment because like this was really the first time we've ever done that assessment as a group. So we've had like we used to do it individually and you said something really powerful that I never actually thought was going to be an outcome of the assessment, but it's really cool that it is because you talked about having this community of women in the program that support you and are invested in you. And it sounds like in your assessment it actually identified, you don't know who said what, but like you picked who went there, who filled out the assessment, it now kind of identified that you actually have this community like in your own company that is like investing in your success. Like when they wrote things like, don't like those comments that you're saying, they're like literally like that when you said that out loud, I'm like, they are so invested in Laura's success. Like, how fortunate are you to like have all those people like rooting for you, like in the background, and maybe you didn't even know it before. So I think that's really powerful. And how does it feel now to know that you have like this community of people in the company that are kind of have your back, rooting for your success?
I actually keep a copy of that assessment on my desk, and I just kind of peek over every once in a while. And my work friend just said to me repeatedly, like, I don't know why you're so surprised by these bullet points and these, these styles that you operate under, like for, they shouldn't be a surprise to you. And I said, just seeing it in print is so eye opening. And just like Lisa said, like she worked towards this and she spent the time and put in the work and got this position for a reason. And there's always an outside choice. And just kind of knowing that this group, this core group thinks so highly and just kind of and has your back is there's some reassurance there. And the network you can bounce things off of, like in a sponsorship campaign scenario, it's kind of life changing to know that people think highly of you. And it is strange to see it in print was the big one for me.
So I'm really curious because this is something that comes up, and I know I'm totally these are not the questions I sent to you in advance. I'm really curious because one thing like I found with working with women in construction, the performance review system is in most companies is really focused on like the tangible skills, right? Like it's very like focused on the hard skills, whereas not so much on the soft skills. So and you talked about seeing these words in print, right? About like your leadership potential, about like the skill, like the strengths that you bring to the table. Have you ever seen that in a performance review before? Or like just explain what that looks like. And I'm just so curious about it.
I've never seen it in that format, and I'm not gonna lie. I think it was week 1 or 2 and kind of staring down the curriculum and saying, "Okay, we're gonna expect you to submit 5 to 7 or 8 names." I like to do your leadership brand assessment. My first thought, I mean, it was instant. My first thought was, "I'm not a leader by nature." And that's why I'm here. And honest to goodness, it was my very it just resonated so powerfully. And I'd spoken to some other women and kind of said like, oh my gosh, like I don't have leadership skills and I am not in that bucket of, you know, directors and managers and senior officials and just to come out the other side of that with, knowing that people feel that I do have potential and I do have this skill set and I just hear you're very focused on not being negative, but here's some areas of, where you're really excelling was just it was career changing for me.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's like like leadership expectations. I feel like in construction, it's very like that transactional versus transformational leadership. It's really like that transaction, like title, right? Title is so important, right? It's like director, they have leadership skills, right? Like, but for some reason you didn't think that you did, but actually, like everybody in the company actually has been looking to you, probably, I would guess, for the past like 17 years for leadership, because leadership is really about influence, right? It's more about that influence than it is about that title. And you clearly, like that report, like shined all the leadership skills, like brought it all to the table, which is really cool that you have that. And I love that you keep it beside your desk. Because that is a 100% confidence booster to read like what other people say your strengths are. It's just such a great reminder to like lean into that every day. So is there something from that assessment that you're like, whew, because the idea is like we find out what your strengths are and you just do more of it because that's where you build that influence. Is there something that you've been leaning in?
The very last note, it was, do you have anything else to say? And I kind of narrowed down who wrote it, but they said, like, I hope Lord knows that she has a voice and she's heard. And it causes some emotion because when you do work behind the screen and behind the scenes for so long and you pump out this material, then you're on to the next one and you're not forward facing with or directly facing clients and you're not in rooms with project teams all the time. It just to know that you're heard when you do speak up really resonated.
Oh, that is really cool. So it's like, is that kind of like the theme that you're taking away with you? Is that like, I'm going to use my voice more. I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to find those opportunities.
Yep, I think, just speaking up and not being afraid. Somebody had said that during the session, like, you don't wanna ever ask a stupid question, and you can say as many times as you want, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but you always feel like you're the one who is less knowledgeable than these engineers and practitioners and specialists and consultants and trades, and they all know their bucket so, so well, and I used to say, like, "I'm not in construction, I'm in sales and marketing," and it's like, "No, I'm absolutely in construction," and you know, and I can probably hold my own. So, we'll hang on to that.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. Lisa, how about you? Like, you talked about already that shift that happened from like, yes, I deserve to be here. Yes, I bring a lot to the table. There's some pretty awesome things that people said in your assessment too. Can you talk about some of the shifts that happened for you in the coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the biggest shift is just recognizing that I am a leader, and that it sounds crazy to say that out loud, but just based on my path and knowing my inner critic, that has been the biggest mind shift for me. And second to that, I would say that, I've got a very capable team and that it's okay to delegate. Like it's okay to delegate those tasks. I've done the roles and Laura spoke to it earlier as well. Like just because I understand the process and I've done it at one point in my career doesn't make it mine to do. And by allowing myself to delegate that to my capable team, it gives them growth and empowerment opportunity as well as allows me to clear well, not clear my desk, but to focus on larger initiatives, bigger projects, right?
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the impact of that? Like that, just having that headspace to actually like own that leadership position, right? Like, you know what? It sounds like the shift that you made is like, maybe I'm not responsible to deliver the day to day work anymore. But like, tell me about what happens when you have that headspace to like think about the future, think about those bigger projects.
Well, I think it's it's empowering, I guess, and you're just allowing yourself to struggling to find the right words, but to engage with other departments in meaningful ways and internal initiatives that, impact not only your department, but interdepartmentally in the company and just create meaningful change, like recognize efficiencies and more effective ways of conducting work.
I love it. So literally like making it more effective, bringing more value, building those relationships. Is that kind of what you were able to create the time for?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm starting to see the shift where I'm setting the meeting. I'm sending the meeting invite out with the topic and aligning what the process could look like from a documentation standpoint, right? We're very big in trying to document the process as we go here in a management system kind of way, right? Like this is how Lindsay's does work, like an operating procedure. And yeah, it's been good.
Oh, that's really cool from a growth perspective, because then you're like systematizing things so the company can grow and you could still be the leader because you have all these processes that you can lead within the company.
Well, I'm part of I would say lead, but I'm part of developing and documenting and providing insight certainly from my department as we go along.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about is like the training that we do at Ambition Theory is really different than other training that happens in the construction industry, and that ours is really the main focus is implementation. Like even on day one, Laura, you talked a little bit about like just kind of like leaving and like starting to apply what you're learning right away. Can you talk about what that was like? Like just having that accountability to actually apply what you learned right away, and then also talk about what you were able to implement during the 8-week course. So I'll start with you, Lisa.
For implementation for me, like I'm kind of naturally an introverted person, so networking was something that I could easily implement the next day, right? Like whether and I had to build up in my head that networking was this exhausting, forceful thing with interacting with strangers and that for an introvert that's like a death sentence. But as you can do it in easy ways. Like it's as easy as having lunch in the lunchroom and engaging with the people outside of your department and just outside of your work function, right? Just to ask about their weekend. Another thing I've done is volunteered on various fundraising campaigns now here at Lindsay's. just to get my face out there outside of my normal day-to-day role and as a person.
And how was that kind of like that person? Because like you're in accounting, right? So accounting is like, way out in the corner, like not maybe not in the forefront all the time, but you've kind of put yourself in the forefront. You're building those relationships with other people in the company. You're kind of building your personal brand, letting people know who you are. How has that helped you? And how do you think that's helped them?
For me personally, I think it's just exercising my voice. Like I have a voice, I'm starting to find it, and it's a bit like working a muscle, right? Like every time that I speak up in a large group setting or in that lunchroom awkwardly, you know, trying to interact that way, it just gets a little bit easier. And I think, you know, for the company, I think that's just it's important to do to just facilitate interdepartmental, communication, right? It's very important. Accounting is very much a support department, and we are operationally driven, but the work that we do here is just as meaningful. I don't know in that support capacity.
And do you think with kind of like as you're documenting these process that because you started building those relationships, it's been a bit easier?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And, I think traditionally finance and operations can be at a bit of loggerheads, in traditional senses. But I think if we can, let's say, learn to play well together or communicate well together, I think we can accomplish great things.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. But Laura, how about you? I want you to share some of this like immediate implementation, what you were able to implement and what that led to.
The goal setting was pretty major for me. I never really thought ahead. And I think I still have that original days mentality and just kind of getting through the days and evenings where my life had changed significantly, just becoming a new parent and wanting to find that whole work balance and just kind of knowing that it's okay to shut it down for a little while and take time for yourself. And we had some communications and really good dialogue about health and wellness and looking after yourself. And I watched some other people having similar struggles and just kind of coming out the side knowing that, you need to talk about these things. And when you bury them and they grow and grow and grow in your brain and it becomes a bigger issue. And I've said before, my husband would say like, oh, this other party isn't thinking about this at the dinner table. And, you just need to shed it for a little while and not overthink things. And it's just a little tasks. I've said you don't really realize how much you learned and how much you grew until you're, in front of somebody and you're not liking the way the conversation's going. And I've found myself speaking up and then, oh my gosh, who said that? And now it was me who said it. And, it's, and it's just really, really transformative.
So is it really like the thing that you implemented the most was that last comment on your assessment, like that Laura has a voice and we want to hear, I don't know exactly what it said, but Laura, it's kind of like Laura has a voice and we need to hear it more. Is that kind of like the main thing that you implemented from the
I
course?
think it was no longer hiding behind the screen. And just, I was so scary before, like the phone would ring and I Googled the phone number and so I could expect what the conversation was going to be, or, as somebody with a sponsorship opportunity. And I've absolutely, sponsorships come our way every single day and we can't say yes to all of them. And we really pride ourselves in what we do in the community. But there's a soft way to explain to people, no. And that is, can you do this task for me? No, but I know who can. As opposed to like, I can do it for you. Just leave it on the desk in the big pile and I'll get to it.
I
Like,
love it. So it's like really like being more strategic and thinking like, how is this? Do I need to do it, or is this or is this an absolute no? Right? I love that you're saying no.
yeah, I'm saying no
That's
and
awesome.
encouraging
After
people to move down the chain because there are some really great, capable people and it's not a bad thing for everyone to be busy and not have certain people severely overloaded. And my dad used to say, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person in the whole office. And and I'd always think about that because I was, still am a very busy person, and but we're all busy and it's subjective and people's time is their own, and we have to prioritize. So it's not a bad thing to hand things over.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I do want to talk about this idea of taking action, getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things. It doesn't always go as planned, right? Like you can have great intentions to try to implement a new thing and it doesn't work. Did that happen to you, Laura, during the course?
Boundaries were a struggle for me. They every day are a struggle for me. It's really hard to say no, and I'm not good at delegating. Like I'm not, but I'm trying really hard to get better.
So how did you keep trying, right? Because it's easy to give up, right? It's like, oh, I tried to say no, I didn't. So then you just kind of keep going in your own ways. How are you able to remember to like keep showing up, keep flexing that muscle, keep kind of practicing that skill?
I've actually weirdly gone, not weirdly, maybe, but gone back to my job description several every several weeks. I kind of dig that document out and really I wrote that document. It's what I pitched. It's what I was excited about. And does this action item, does this task fit in that bucket? And if it doesn't, there's probably a better person to tackle, not better person, but another person to tackle it. So just kind of reminding myself periodically. I think oftentimes we have a job description and it kind of goes in the drawer or in the binder and you never really go back to it. But
Cool.
for me, it's holding myself accountable and just trying to continuously improve
Is
my
it okay
skill
if I
set.
call you out on something right now that I just noticed?
I
Okay.
expected you to call me out on
Okay.
something.
You said in this interview, I'm not good at goal setting. I've never done this before. But you wrote that job description before we ever met. And like in the fact that you're going back to it, like that was your goal. Like that job description when you wrote it while you were on maternity leave, that was you setting goals. So you are good at setting goals. Like
Okay.
you demonstrated it. You went, you put yourself out there to the CEO, and the CEO actually challenged you to level it up and say, I need you to say it out loud, which I love that. Like, that's coaching behavior, that's coaching leadership style. I love that they did that. And the fact that you're using that as like your North Star, as your like home base, as when you're like in, like, maybe you're not at the delegating at the level you want you to be. You're like, okay, I remember I set this goal. Let me review. Let me go back to what I wanted for myself and like just check in. And I think like that is so powerful that you're doing that. And like, don't forget, you're actually pretty good at goal setting and holding yourself accountable. I'm just putting that out to you right now.
No, I appreciate that. Needed that.
So thank you for getting uncomfortable there. Lisa, can you kind of describe the before and after from taking this course, like from your leadership perspective?
Before and after from a leadership perspective, I would say just I know it sounds crazy, but just recognizing that I am a leader. I have a fabulous team. I have a voice and, meaningful things to say on different topics that come through my email. And I'm not hanging back waiting for some to see what somebody else responds on the email first. Now I see myself like it comes in my email and I respond like, yeah. I don't know how to summarize that in the
I
end,
think
but
it's from like you were kind of like almost like that imposter syndrome. You're like, I'm in this position, but I'm not a leader. And now you're acting like the leader. Like you were like, I am in charge of this department. I am going to put
yeah,
my opinion out there. I'm going to influence this decision. That's kind of what I'm noticing in you.
imposter syndrome was huge for me. Even just reading some of the articles throughout the course and just understanding that it's not, it's not unique to just me, but it is a thing. And I can give it a name and I can frame it the right way in my head now and move forward and respond to the email, pick up the phone, make the call, talk to that person in the lunchroom.
I love that you started saying with emails and then you said relationship, 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 call, phone, lunchroom, in person. I think that's the biggest transformation I've seen in you is that you're kind of like hiding behind the email, but now it's like, yeah, I'll use the email if I have to, but recognizing that like you have this influence and you can use it by connecting with these people. And I think that's incredible. Laura, how about you? What was kind of like the before and after for you?
Think just not hiding behind your screen and just kind of continually looking for opportunities and, if your door's open and they're having a conversation outside my door, just kind of not being afraid to jump in and oh, you're almost done that project. Okay, should we be photographing it? Are they happy? Can we, request a reference letter and just being more proactive all around? And it's those conversations and those sidebars where you get the most valuable material. So it's worth kind of speaking up, not feeling like you're interrupting their moment, but you're interrupting in the very best way. And then you've kind of established the baseline for next time, and they're going to think of you when they're finishing a project and just just not being afraid to use your voice.
I'm so interested that in the response that you're getting though, because the people in your survey said, please use your voice more. And now you are. So I kind of have a feeling you use the word interrupting. I don't think you're actually interrupting when you go and talk to those people. Their problem, I bet their reaction is like, oh, we're so happy Laura's here to talk to us and help us showcase this amazing work we're doing to help us get more clients so we could do more work like that. Have you noticed like a difference in the receptive people?
I've noticed a difference in just kind of I invited myself to the operations meeting. I wasn't necessarily thought of for the operations meeting, but I said, hey, like this is a good chance for me to see what the status of this project is and who's happy and who we should be thinking of in 6 months when we wrap up. And everyone was kind of like, oh, you caught that at the meeting? Like you just kind of they were surprised in the beginning and like, why is she here? But not in a bad way, just kind of in, oh shoot, like that client's not happy. So we shouldn't talk about them anymore. But it just people have been thinking about me more and more coming in and really starting the dialogue instead of just over the last 6 months, just kind of me having to seek them out and really pin them in a corner to talk about things because they're busy and they have a lot going on. And project coordinators are so busy, but their feelings on the projects are so valuable. And some of my favorite conversations are those sidebars. And now they're thinking about me, which is really, really great.
Woo! This is the power of when you like lean into your leadership brand, right? Like people are attracted to you, right? And opportunities are attracted to you. Oh, I love that that's happening. It's like I think the shift for you is like instead of you being like marketing, we got to do the marketing, we got to do the marketing. Now it's like they're coming to you like, here's a great story, here's something we need to do. They're actually like the wheels are shifted and they're like attracted to your leadership brand and they want to help you and they want to be aligned with you because you're like making things happen. So that is awesome.
I'm just offering them pictures of projects they worked on and put them on their wall and giving them an opportunity to kind of showcase those and talk about them and kind of, it goes both ways. So by putting it on social media, they can share it. Say, hey mom, look what I did. And it just kind of it's just trying to improve all around and keep that dialogue going.
I love it. It's like that cheesy saying, like when the tide rises, like all boats rise. You're like literally like living and breathing that value, Laura. I love it. Okay, this is our last question. So we always end our podcast with a 24-hour action that people could take. We always end our coaching sessions with one too. So Laura, I'm wondering if you could share one 24-hour action that you took in the course, and then together we can kind of unpack how people listening can just start applying that in there.
I think mine was going to be inviting myself to that ops meeting. It was kind of a big deal for me to kind of go into somebody's office that's higher up and say, hey, like, I know I wasn't thought of, but here are the reasons I should sit there. And he said, heck yeah, like, didn't occur to me and that would be valuable for you. So that was really eye opening for me and kind of like, felt like I belonged. So it was a nice moment.
So let's break that down. So like really find a meeting, find a group, find a somebody to talk to that you're not typically included in and get yourself included. And I think the 24 action would be you called the one person in charge of the meeting and asked if you could be invited. So I think a great action for people listening would be like think about a place where you would love to be inserted and just reach out, start building that relationship with the one person that like could get you invited to that
Well, I
situation.
do think for him, it wasn't like transformational or eye opening or just kind of anything that he was like, heck yeah, just come and I'll
Yeah.
get you invited. And it was just kind of like a blip for him. But for me, it just meant kind of having all this other information accessible. And it was really beneficial. So I actually really look forward to those monthly meetings.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, like, you got a seat at the table. You have more influence. Like, how many months have you had?
I've been there probably the last 3 or 5, probably 5 months. Yeah.
5 months. Okay, so I can't wait till it's been a year. Like, what's gonna come out of this? Like, it's kind of awesome. Okay, Lisa, how about you? Is there a 24-hour action that you remember from the course that you could share with the audience?
For me, I guess we've talked about it a little bit, but delegating the tasks, like you can remember being at a month end and, just um, cost transfers, like we have a stack of cost transfers to do. And it's something that I've always done, I guess. It's followed me throughout the path. And, I had a margin review. Like I had to look at, the margins on the projects for the month. And, just taking that action to delegate those cost transfers, it's not mine. And making the conscious decision that they're not mine anymore, period. And to be able to hit that deadline to complete the margin review.
So how did you know that was the thing you needed to delegate?
It's it's just the little bits that I've held on to, like, they're familiar, we talked about it, and it is just easier to hang on to familiar bits than to forge forward into something that's in an uncomfortable space and to let that magic.
Oh, that is a good action. So find something that you're really comfortable doing and then delegate it to someone else because I'm sure it was really easy for you to teach someone how to do it, right, Lisa?
I mean, they know how to do it,
Oh,
that's
they
the
know.
thing.
Okay.
There's no excuse for me to hang on to those whatsoever, other than they came across my desk and, or they're in my door pocket. There's really no reason for me to hang on to that. There are others that can do it
Okay,
and
I
are
love it.
capable.
Delegate
Yeah,
something within 24 hours. That is a great action. All right, Lisa, how do people connect with you? Is LinkedIn the best way?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, we'll put your link in the show notes. And Laura, does LinkedIn work for you as well?
Yeah, LinkedIn's fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll put the link in the show notes. And how do people learn more about Lindsay Construction?
That's the website, lindsayconstruction.ca. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and just info at lindsayconstruction.ca.
Amazing. Thank you so much for getting uncomfortable and sharing your leadership journeys with us today.